interaction between Western business schools and the Chinese business schools and where that started and where that's going. My knowledge is the earliest of those programs started about 13 years ago or so. And they've been consistently increasing in number and variety. I think there's got to be probably nearly 100 by now in China. I know of at least 40 myself, and there's a bunch of things happening that I'm not aware of just because it's a very big place. The initial impetus for that is to help the Chinese university sector develop. China's tertiary education sector, well, the entire education sector, suffered horribly during the Cultural Revolution, which ended in 1976. And so essentially an entire generation of faculty was lost. And faculty development is a long-time initiative. And therefore, having the contribution of faculty from leading Western schools is a great impetus and a great support to China and China's universities as they develop this critical requirement, which is a better faculty team. Is that all right? Mm-hmm. Side, everybody in the world is now increasingly wanting to be something related to China. So just as many of the private sector companies all over the world, the multinationals, are coming here, increasing their presence here, increasing their desire to be selling products or sourcing goods here. The universities have the same inclination. They want to be more involved in what is easily the #1 growth story of the 21st century. I think those two factors combined explain why this is happening. It's become a bit like the auto market was in the early part of the 20th century. Early in that decade, Henry Ford was famous for saying, you can have any color of Model T you want as long as you want black. And there were very few variations on autos in those early days. But rather quickly, the market developed a wide variety of cars, brands, sizes, colors, where the stick shift, automatic, whatever. And you're seeing the same thing in terms of business education offerings in China now. We've got dual degree programs, joint programs where the degree solely comes from the local partner, but the foreign partner is supporting with curriculum and faculty. Non-degree programs are proliferating, wide variety of things, and it's all to meet what everybody, both local and foreign, perceive to be a dynamic educational environment and a pressing need for managerial talent in China.
That was awesome. Truly.
Who's considering a graduate level or undergraduate level business program gain by going for the international version as opposed to a solely domestic version. The primary cause for that is increased reputation. It's still widely held that solely domestic programs aren't performing at a first world level, certainly at a US or a Western Europe level, in terms of the quality of the education. So getting a degree, undergraduate or graduate, from a program that is foreign affiliated or is itself foreign is considered to have more value by the market, both not just by the students but by their employers or potential employers, than having a degree that's solely from a domestic school. And that is reflected in pricing. Tuitions for the foreign affiliated programs are typically higher than tuitions for domestic programs. However, that gap is closing.
How much higher? Give us an illustration.
Well, in terms of solely domestic tuition versus foreign tuition, but the gap is closing. So for example, the campus I work on here, Antai College of Economics and Management, Shanghai Jiao University, has 3 of its own MBA programs, a part-time and international English program and an EMBA program. Their Chinese language EMBA program is now in excess of $50,000, which puts it above the cost of some of the foreign affiliated MBA programs in China. And they feel they can do that because they're one of the top 5 business schools in China. And the proof of the pudding is they're getting 350, 400 students per year to sign up for that program. So the gap's closing, the environment's changing very quickly, but the basic point is that a lot of people who are looking to fast-track their careers to grow more quickly still believe that a foreign affiliation with your degree brings incremental value, and so they're willing to pay an incremental price for it.
Now, what percentage of the PRC-based
business education? I don't know the exact number. I know that as a percent, compared to the number of local people in the program, it's 2%. It's very small. Because China is now graduating 9 million undergraduates every year from its scatterings of universities all over the country. There are 180 schools in China now that are authorized to issue the MBA degree. The large majority of those are not with a foreign affiliation. So the lion's share of graduates from business programs in China are Chinese. But you're seeing more foreigners coming in, and it's for the obvious reason. Everybody wants to participate in this most dynamic growth story of the 21st century. So we're seeing, particularly from Korea, the Korean government and its people recognize that there's a very strong future with this place. It's 90 minutes flight from Seoul. So they are pretty aggressively sending more and more of their, particularly undergraduate students, for exchange programs here in China. Japan, on the other hand, is not catching up in that regard. They're actually declining somewhat. The United States is still sending a fairly healthy percentage of people to China for general study, but not nearly as much on a percentage basis as South Korea is, for example. So the number's small, but growing, and I think we'll see more of it, along with more schools coming here to offer some combination of programs.
So what I was going to ask you a question
about
about
Global Executive MBA here in Shanghai. That program is a collaboration between USC's Marshall School of Business and the Antai College of Economics and Management, Shanghai Jiao Tong University. Our first class matriculated in 2004. We are going to graduate our 6th class in January, and our 8th class is, we're just getting underway recruiting the 8th class now. When we entered the market, there were a few other programs similar to ours in structure. There are a few more now, and we expect that they'll keep coming. One of the things I noticed that's interesting is that demand seems to be elastic. When we entered the market in 2004, the aggregate enrollment in Shanghai increased. 2 other programs that launched in a few years later, again, we saw the same phenomenon. But it's also a very tough market. We've seen at least 2 schools have to exit from the mainland market in the past few years because they didn't have what it took. And I generally think, and the people who have been here for a while in the sector tend to agree, that it's a fairly simple formula for success here. You need to have a good strategy, you need to have good leadership, and you need to have good execution. The things that tend to cripple or kill programs are basically internal. And we consider that our biggest competition is ourselves. And if we do a good job, we get great people to come join us. And if we don't, we will be shown the tarmac.
I want to move the camera.
Employers are hiring what kind of employees? I think it's safe to say there's a couple of clear splits. If we consider the state-owned enterprises, the SOEs, they tend to be more focused on hiring people that graduate from Chinese language programs, which are by definition Chinese schools, for a couple of reasons. One is, because it's of course most important for the operation's own function. They don't work in foreign language, they work in Chinese. So the students are studying in a relevant language to the Chinese environment. The second one is they're studying with other people who are also in this environment, and having the right kind of network is one of the 3 essential value contributions of any good business education program. Programs are teaching like-minded individuals, and so a person from a state-owned enterprise who is studying in a Chinese language program is studying with other people that we may well have some influence on their future, customers, suppliers, advisors, government people themselves. And since one of the essential value contributions of business education is network, that becomes a pretty important consideration and one of the drivers of why people from SOEs tend towards the domestic programs more. Of course, the multinationals, especially the Western ones, they have more familiarity with the foreign schools that are here, whether it's USC or any of a number of others, and they tend more to hire those people that come from programs that have the foreign brand. Partially that's because their people are much more likely to be posted elsewhere outside of China, for example. They might be posted elsewhere in Asia, back to the home country, and having a degree with that international pedigree helps that transition. You can work in a more global environment. So I think it's safe to say that the split is like that. SOEs focusing on domestic programs, multinationals focusing on foreign affiliated programs.
Now what about executive MBAs?
Are the cash cows of universities. And EMBA programs are the cash cows of business schools. And that is true here as well. I mentioned earlier in this conversation that the Antai College has an EMBA that we offer taught in Chinese, and we get 350, 400 students enrolled in that per year. At $50,000, you do the sums. That's not a bad bit of money. They're not unique in that. All of the top business schools in China have similar EMBA programs with quotas. Actually, the Chinese government sets quotas on how much they can recruit. Our school, Fudan, Tsinghua, Beida, all have some of the top quotas in the country because we're widely our school, meaning the Yantai College, because we're widely recognized as being top 5 business school in the country. So the government gives us more to work with. But yes, there's a lot of money to be made from MBA programs if they are well structured and offering value. The foreign affiliated programs, such as the one that I represent, the Global Executive MBA that tie up with University of Southern California, tend not to be big money spenders. And that is because they're typically priced less than the programs that are operated on home campus, just because of the nature of the Chinese market. The Chinese market doesn't really yet bear the full cost or the full tuition point that many of these schools offer in their home markets, although that's changing rather quickly. The other thing is that the cost to run a program here is typically higher, and we fly in 2 faculty every 6 weeks. And so in addition to their salary to teach all the contact hours, we have airfare and hotel to provide for them, and extra time. It takes them a full day to get here and a full day to get back. So operation cost is higher, tuitions are lower, cohort size is roughly the same, and therefore the money factor isn't there like it is for the home programs that are usually really profitable. That's okay, because most of the programs that I know here, at least the ones with some quality and some strategy, aren't here to make money. We're here to develop in China and to create a future for ourselves. And so we don't need to show the CFO that we've got a big fat profit margin. We're looking more at investing our time and effort in development here. And I don't just speak for Genba, I speak for all of the similar programs that I know of.